Cowboy, what are you doing here? Do you want to stay near me tonight? Clara wiped her hands on the apron she was wearing, brushing off the sticky residue of candy she had been packaging for the county fair. The warm smell of caramel and popcorn mingled with the fresh scent of hay in the air, creating a feeling that was both familiar and comforting. Every year, her family took part in the fair, running a small booth near the entrance where they sold homemade treats and crafts. Clara loved the energy of the fair, the bright colors, the laughter of children, and the faint strains of music floating from the main stage. It was a place where everyone in town came together, and yet, this year, something felt different. She adjusted the sun hat on her head and glanced around the bustling fairgrounds. People were walking in groups, carrying balloons and cotton candy, their faces glowing with excitement. The air buzzed with chatter, the clinking of coins in cash boxes, and the occasional bark of a dog chasing after a thrown stick. Clara smiled to herself, feeling that quiet joy she always got when surrounded by so much life and happiness. Suddenly, a deep voice interrupted her thoughts. "Well, if it isn't Clara." She froze mid-motion, her hand hovering over a jar of candied apples. The voice was unmistakable. Familiar. It carried the same warmth and calm confidence she had remembered from her childhood summers. Slowly, she turned her head. There he was.
Luke, the cowboy from her past.
Taller now, broader, with shoulders that seemed to have carried the weight of hard work and years spent outdoors. His sun-bleached hair fell just slightly into his eyes, which were still the same sharp blue she remembered. The corners of his mouth lifted in a small, easy smile that made her chest tighten in a way she couldn't explain. Clara's first instinct was disbelief. She blinked, hoping her mind wasn't playing tricks on her. "Luke?" she asked cautiously, her voice quieter than she intended. He nodded, tipping the worn cowboy hat he had tucked under one arm. "I thought I recognized you. It's been a long time." It had been more than 10 years. 10 years since she had last seen him. 10 years since they had run barefoot through the fields, chased fireflies, and shared ice cream cones while lying on the grass, dreaming about the future. Back then, Luke had been her summer friend, the boy she had teased and laughed with until the sun went down. He had left town that fall without much explanation, and though she had kept up with his occasional letters, she never expected to see him again. Now, here he was, standing just a few feet away, looking every bit the part of the cowboy she had remembered, but with a maturity and calmness that made her realize he was no longer the boy she once knew. Clara took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. She forced a smile. "I didn't expect to see you here. What brings you back to town?" Luke chuckled softly, running a hand through his hair. "Business mostly. I'm helping out a friend with the ranch for a while. Thought I'd check in on old friends while I'm here." There was a pause, as Clara tried to think of something to say, but the words seemed to vanish. She felt the familiar warmth of memories she had buried deep, mixed with a strange excitement that made her stomach flutter. For a moment she just looked at him, taking in the way the sunlight highlighted his features, the ease of his posture, and the quiet confidence that had always drawn people to him. Finally, she gestured toward the booth. "Well, come on over. I'll get you something to eat. It's been a long day, and I think you deserve a little treat." Luke smiled again and walked over, his boots making soft thuds against the wooden planks of the fairground. As he approached, Clara noticed how much he had changed, and yet how much he had stayed the same. There was a steadiness in his eyes that spoke of experience, but there was also the spark of mischief she remembered so well from their childhood games. While serving him a candied apple, Clara felt a sudden wave of nostalgia. She remembered the summers when Luke had taught her how to ride a horse, the way they had climbed trees to pick apples, and the long evenings they had spent watching the stars. Back then, life had been simple and carefree. and Luke had been a constant presence in her days. Now, as she handed him the treat, it felt like the past and present had collided in the most unexpected way. They moved away from the booth, carrying their apples, and found a quiet spot near the edge of the fairgrounds. The sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the fields and turning the sky into shades of orange and pink. The fair noises were still present, but softened at this distance, creating a peaceful backdrop for their conversation. "So, tell me everything," Clara said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "How has life treated you? The city? Or have you been working on the ranch all these years?" Luke took a bite of his apple, chewing thoughtfully. "A little bit of both," he admitted. "I traveled, learned a few things, but the ranch always called me back. There's something about the land, about working with it, that makes everything else seem smaller in comparison." Clara nodded, understanding more than he could know. She had always admired the way he connected with the world around him, the patience and care he seemed to give to everything he touched. "I get that," she said softly. "I've always loved this town. Even when I moved away, it never really left me." They walked slowly along the path, talking and laughing, sharing stories from the years they had spent apart. Luke told her about the people he had met, the challenges he had faced, and the small victories that had kept him going. Clara shared her own journey, her work, her family, and the little dreams she had nurtured along the way. The conversation flowed easily, filled with the kind of honesty and openness that only old friends, or perhaps something more, could share. As they reached a small wooden bridge overlooking a creek, Clara paused. The water glistened in the fading sunlight, reflecting the sky above. She leaned on the railing, lost in thought, and realized how much she had missed having Luke in her life. The years had changed them, yes, but the connection they had once shared seemed untouched by time. Luke stepped beside her, his presence calm and reassuring. "Bah!" He glanced down at the water and then back at her, a small smile playing on his lips. "It's good to see you again, Clara," he said quietly. "I didn't realize how much I missed you, until now." Clara's heart skipped a beat. She looked at him, searching his eyes for the sincerity she hoped was there, and found it. The memories of their past, the laughter, the games, and the quiet evenings under the stars, all of it came rushing back in a wave of warmth and longing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world seemed to pause around them, the sounds of the fair fading into the background as they simply stood there, side by side. It was a simple moment, but one that carried the weight of years, of memories, and of possibilities yet to come. Finally, Clara spoke, her voice soft but filled with emotion. "I can't believe you're really here." Luke looked at her and shrugged, a playful glint in his eye. "I guess some things have a way of coming back, don't they?" Clara laughed softly, a sound that blended with the gentle rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. She felt a strange combination of relief and excitement. Relief that he was here, real and present, and excitement for the chance to reconnect, to see where this unexpected reunion might lead. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the fairgrounds, Clara realized that this day, this unexpected meeting, was just the beginning. The past had returned in the form of Luke, but it wasn't a return to old days exactly. It was the start of something new, a chance to rediscover a friendship, and perhaps something more. Under the warm glow of a small town's familiar streets and the timeless magic of shared memories. And as they walked back toward the fair, laughing and talking as if no time had passed at all, Clara felt a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in years. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time she felt that everything was possible. Clara and Luke continued walking through the fair, letting the sounds and colors guide them. The lights from the stalls twinkled like tiny stars, and the smell of popcorn and roasted nuts lingered in the air. Children ran past, squealing with delight as their parents called after them, and the cheerful music from the carousel floated across the grounds. But for Clara and Luke, it felt as though the rest of the world had faded slightly, leaving only the two of them in a bubble of memory and conversation. "So," Clara said with a playful grin, "do you still remember how you tried to teach me to ride a horse when I was 7? I think I ended up pulling more pranks on you than actually learning anything." Luke laughed, a deep, warm sound that made her heart feel light. "Oh, I remember. You were fearless, even back then. I don't think anyone could have taught you anything without you turning it into a game. You were always trying to race the horses before I said we could, or hiding behind the barn when I was supposed to be showing you the ropes." Clara giggled, remembering the mischief. She could picture herself sneaking around the stables, trying to outsmart him, and the two of them bursting into laughter when the horses would nuzzle their pockets, looking for treats. "And you," she said, nudging him lightly, "you never gave up, even when I tricked you into thinking the horses could talk to me. You actually listened to me ramble about it, like it made sense." Luke shook his head, smiling. "I guess I was just patient, or maybe stubborn enough to wait for you to finally believe me." They walked further, stopping near a ring toss game. The smell of fresh popcorn was stronger here, and Clara could see families gathered around, cheering and laughing as they tried to win stuffed animals. She picked up a small ring from the counter and handed it to Luke. "Let's see if you've still got your aim," she said teasingly. Luke took the ring, weighing it in his hand. "Don't be surprised if I win something huge," he said, his voice full of confidence. He tossed the ring carefully, and it landed perfectly over the bottle. Clara clapped in delight. "See? Still got it. I think you just proved that some things never change." Luke grinned and handed the ring back to her. "Your turn. Let's see if you can do better than me now." Clara's first throw missed by a wide margin, hitting a bottle off to the side. She laughed, pretending to be shocked at her own failure. "Oh, no, I think my skills have deteriorated," she said dramatically. Luke chuckled, giving her an encouraging smile. Her next throw landed closer, and then the third one finally made it onto a bottle. The small victory made her feel triumphant. Luke nodded approvingly. "See? Told you. You still remember how to aim." The game led to more playful banter, and soon they were laughing so much that a small crowd of children watching them began giggling too. Clara realized that even in these small moments, the connection they shared was strong. It was as if the years apart had done nothing to weaken the bond they had formed long ago. After the game, they wandered over to the food stalls. Clara bought them both lemonade, handing a cup to Luke with a shy smile. "You've probably had better drinks in the city, but this one tastes like summer to me," she said. Luke took a sip and nodded. "It's perfect. Exactly what I needed." He looked at her, his expression soft. "You know, some things really do stay the same. Even the taste of this lemonade brings back memories of long summer afternoons." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest. There was something comforting about sharing these simple joys with someone who had been such a big part of her past. "It's strange, isn't it?" she said quietly. "How life can take us far away, but certain places and people always stay with us." Luke nodded, thoughtful. "Yeah. And sometimes it takes years to realize what we've been missing." They found a quiet bench near the edge of the fair, where they could watch the sun fully dip behind the trees, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. The golden light caught in Clara's hair, making it shimmer, and she caught herself staring at him for a moment before looking away, embarrassed. Luke noticed, but didn't comment. Instead, he reached for her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. It was a small gesture, but it carried years of unspoken feelings, of nostalgia, and of trust. Clara squeezed back, feeling a shiver of excitement. She remembered how, as kids, they had often held hands during their walks home from the creek, or while exploring the fields. That simple touch now felt like a bridge across the years, a reminder that the bond they had shared had never truly disappeared. "You know," Luke said after a moment, "I always wondered what it would have been like if I hadn't left. If I had stayed here, right in this town with you, maybe we would have grown up together, seen the world from here." Clara's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say something so personal, and yet it felt natural, like a truth that had been lingering in the air between them. "I've thought about that too," she admitted. "Sometimes I wonder if things could have been different, if we had stayed closer instead of drifting apart." Luke smiled, a little wistfully. "Maybe some things are meant to come back around. Maybe we're getting a second chance, right here, right now." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of hope and happiness. She realized that seeing Luke again wasn't just about nostalgia, it was about rediscovering a connection that had been quietly waiting for this moment. They talked long into the evening, sharing stories from their teenage years that neither had told anyone else. Luke remembered the time Clara had painted his boots with bright colors as a joke, and Clara laughed until her stomach hurt. She told him about the letter she had written but never sent, describing the small joys and struggles of her life while he was away. Each story brought them closer, peeling back the layers of time and distance. As the sky grew darker, the first stars began to appear, twinkling softly above the fairgrounds. The lights from the rides and booths reflected in the creek nearby, creating a magical glow around them. Clara felt a sense of peace and excitement she hadn't experienced in years. It was as if the past and present had merged perfectly, allowing her to enjoy the moment fully. Luke turned to her and smiled, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "Clara, I'm really glad I came back. I didn't realize how much I needed this."
"Needed you?" Clara's heart fluttered.
She smiled softly, feeling the same emotions he had expressed. "Me too," she said quietly. "It feels right being here with you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the gentle sounds of the fair fading in the distance, the laughter of children blending with the quiet rustle of leaves and the trickling of the creek. Clara realized that this evening, this unexpected reunion, was more than just a nostalgic moment. It was a chance to reconnect, to build something new on the foundation of memories, laughter, and shared experiences. As the night grew cooler, Luke draped his jacket over Clara's shoulders, a gesture both protective and caring. She shivered slightly but smiled, feeling the warmth not just from the jacket, but from the presence of someone who had once been a central part of her life and now seemed ready to become so again. For the first time that evening, Clara allowed herself to think about what the future might hold. She didn't know exactly what was coming, but she felt certain that this connection with Luke, this rekindled bond, was something rare, something worth holding on to. And as they stood up to leave the quiet bench and head back toward the lively fairgrounds, she felt a sense of excitement, hope, and anticipation. It was a night of laughter, memories, and quiet confessions, a night that would stay with Clara forever, marking the beginning of a journey that neither she nor Luke could have predicted when they were children running barefoot through the fields. And as they walked side by side, sharing smiles and gentle words, Clara realized that some friendships, and perhaps some love, truly are timeless, waiting patiently for the right moment to bloom again. The night had settled softly over the fairgrounds, and the bright lights from the booths flickered like distant fireflies. The sounds of laughter, music, and chatter had faded into a gentle hum, leaving a calm silence around Clara and Luke. They had wandered away from the busy paths, seeking a quiet corner near the edge of a grassy hill that overlooked the small town. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of blooming flowers from nearby gardens, and the sky stretched endlessly above, dotted with stars that seemed to glow brighter than Clara remembered. Clara sat down on a soft patch of grass, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. Luke joined her a moment later, settling beside her. There was a comfortable stillness between them, one that didn't need words but was filled with the shared memories and emotions of years past. For a long moment, they simply looked up at the sky, letting the beauty of the night sink in.
"It's so clear tonight," Clara whispered, her voice soft with awe. "I haven't seen the stars like this in years."
"You can actually pick out constellations without the city lights getting in the way?"
Luke nodded, his gaze following hers. Yeah, whatever.
There's something peaceful about nights like this. Makes you think about things you don't normally notice during the day. Clara turned slightly to look at him, noticing the way his profile was outlined by the soft starlight. His features were calm, steady, and kind, yet there was a vulnerability in his eyes that made her heart beat faster. She had always been drawn to him, even as a child, but now, years later, the feelings she had buried under childhood memories and everyday life were returning with a quiet intensity. "I've missed this," she admitted after a pause. "Missed having someone I could talk to, someone who understood me without judging. You were always that person for me, Luke. Even back then." Luke's expression softened, and he reached out to gently touch her hand. "Clara, I've thought about you so many times over the years. I wondered how you were doing, if life was treating you well, if you were happy. And now seeing you here, it's like everything I imagined and hoped for has come true." Her heart skipped a beat at his words. There was honesty in his voice that made her want to trust him completely, even though they had been apart for so long. "I've thought about you too," she admitted quietly. "More than I probably should have. I often wonder what things would have been like if we hadn't drifted apart." Luke gave a small, understanding smile. Life has a way of pulling people in different directions. But maybe, sometimes, it also gives us a chance to find our way back. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars twinkle above and listening to the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. Clara felt a sense of peace and anticipation all at once. The years apart, the distance, and the changes in their lives suddenly seemed less important. What mattered was this moment, the two of them, under the vast night sky, reconnecting in a way that felt both natural and extraordinary. "You know," Luke began after a while, his voice thoughtful, "I've always admired how brave you are. You've faced so many things on your own, and yet you've stayed kind and open-hearted. It's inspiring." Clara felt a warmth rise in her cheeks. Compliments like this, coming from Luke, had a weight she couldn't ignore. "Thank you," she said softly. "I've always looked up to you too, you know. You're strong, dependable, and you make people feel safe. Even as a kid, I always trusted you." Luke's gaze met hers, steady and sincere. "I still want to be that person for you, Clara. Even now. I may not have been here all these years, but I want to make up for the time we lost." Clara's heart fluttered. She had always hoped for this kind of connection, even if she didn't admit it to herself. The way he spoke, the sincerity in his eyes, made her believe that something real, something lasting, could grow between them. "Luke?"
I want that too, she said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. They fell silent again, this time letting the weight of their words settle in the quiet night.
The stars above seemed to shine brighter, reflecting the clarity and depth of their feelings. Clara felt as if a part of her that had been waiting for years was finally waking up. She realized that this was more than nostalgia or memory. It was a true reconnection, a chance to explore the feelings they had both kept hidden for far too long. Luke shifted slightly, turning to face her more fully. "Clara, I need to be honest with you," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I've thought about what it would mean if we had stayed in touch, if I hadn't left that town all those years ago. I've imagined how things could have been, and I've realized that what I feel for you has never really gone away." Clara's breath caught. The words she had secretly hoped to hear, but never expected to, were now spoken aloud. She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, not out of sadness but out of the intensity of emotion she was experiencing. "Luke, I've felt the same way," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I tried to ignore it, to focus on my life, but you've always been in my thoughts." He reached out and took her hand fully, holding it gently. "Then maybe we don't have to ignore it anymore," he said. "Maybe this night, this moment, is our chance to start again, to see if we can build something real, something lasting." "Well," Clara nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "I'd like that," she said softly. "I want to see where this could go. I want to try."
"With you." Luke's smile was slow and tender, filled with relief and hope.
"Good. The production, because I've waited a long time for this, and I'm not going to let it slip away again." They sat there together, hand in hand, letting the silence and the stars speak for them. Clara felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years, a feeling that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The air was cool, but she felt warmth spreading through her chest, a warmth that came from being seen, understood, and valued by someone she cared about deeply. "Do you remember the nights we used to lie in the grass and watch the stars?" Clara asked, a small smile forming on her lips. "We made up stories about the constellations, about shooting stars granting wishes." Luke laughed softly. "I remember. You always had the wildest imagination. And, yes, I might have believed in every wish you made." Clara leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the comfort of his presence. "I wish we hadn't lost touch for so long," she admitted. "We didn't. We found our way back. And now we can make up for lost time. We can create new memories. Together, for the next hour, they shared stories, laughed quietly, and remembered old adventures. Every laugh, every word, every glance seemed to deepen the bond between them. Clara realized that the past was not a chain holding them back, but a foundation upon which they could build something beautiful. Eventually, the night grew colder, and the stars shone brighter against the dark sky. Luke tightened his arm around Clara and suggested they start heading back toward the fairgrounds, knowing that their families and friends would soon be leaving. Clara nodded, but neither of them was eager to break the spell of the evening. As they walked slowly back, side by side, Clara felt a sense of anticipation mixed with contentment. The feelings they had both carried for so long were finally being acknowledged, spoken, and embraced. The journey they had begun in childhood, interrupted by distance and time, was now taking a new, more meaningful turn. Before they reached the fairgrounds, Luke stopped and looked at her, his expression serious but gentle. "Clara, thank you for trusting me, for letting me back into your life. I promise I won't take this for granted." Clara smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. And thank you for coming back, for being honest, for being you. In that quiet moment, under the endless sky, with the soft sounds of the fair fading behind them, Clara and Luke felt something undeniable. It was more than friendship, more than nostalgia. It was the beginning of a connection that had waited patiently for the right time, and now it had finally arrived. As they continued walking back, hand in hand, Clara felt a renewed sense of hope and joy. The night had given them something rare, a chance to see each other truly, to share their hearts, and to imagine a future together. And with every step, she knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would be filled with laughter, understanding, and a love that had been waiting all along. The night air was cool and gentle, carrying with it the soft scent of wildflowers and freshly cut grass. Clara and Luke walked side by side along the quiet path that led from the fairgrounds to the outskirts of town. The lights from the booths and rides flickered faintly in the distance, and the occasional hoot of an owl reminded them that the world was vast and full of quiet wonders, even beyond the lively noise of the fair. Clara kept stealing glances at Luke as they walked. He moved with the calm confidence she had always admired. But tonight, there was something different, a warmth and gentleness that made her feel safe, understood, and deeply connected. The words they had shared under the stars lingered in her mind, soft and comforting, like a melody she couldn't stop humming. "I can't believe how peaceful it is out here," Clara said, breaking the silence. "It feels like the town belongs to us for a little while, away from everyone else." Luke smiled, glancing down at her. "Sometimes you just need a quiet night to remember what matters. And tonight—"
Well, tonight feels like it's about more than just us remembering. It feels like the start of something new.
Clara felt a flutter in her chest at his words. She had spent so long trying to imagine what it would be like to have Luke back in her life. And now, here he was, walking beside her, sharing not just memories but hopes for the future. She nodded, feeling the truth in his voice. "I know what you mean. I feel it too. It's like everything finally makes sense again." As they reached a small clearing near a cluster of trees, Luke stopped and turned to her. The moonlight bathed his face in a gentle glow, making his features look soft and reassuring. Clara felt a shiver of anticipation as he spoke. "Clara, I know it's late," he began, his voice quiet but steady. "But I was wondering, do you want to stay near me tonight?" Her breath caught. The question wasn't just about proximity. It carried warmth, care, and the trust he had built with her over the evening. Clara felt her heart race, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She knew that this invitation was significant. It was a chance to be close to someone she trusted, someone she had cared about for years, and someone who clearly valued her as much as she valued him. Luke noticed her hesitation and reached out gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It doesn't have to be anything complicated," he added softly. "Just stay near me. We can sit, talk, or watch the stars again. I just want you close tonight." Clara felt the warmth of his hand linger near hers, and she realized that she didn't want to refuse. "I'd like that," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "I'd like to stay near you." Luke's smile was gentle, relieved, and filled with quiet joy. "Good," he said. "I thought we could go to a small cabin not far from here. It's cozy, quiet, and private. Just enough space for us to relax and enjoy the night without distractions." They walked together through the darkened paths, the soft crunch of grass under their feet, and the faint glow of the moon guiding them. Clara felt a mixture of excitement and comfort, knowing that Luke had planned everything thoughtfully. The path was lined with tall trees, their leaves rustling softly in the night breeze, creating a natural canopy that made the world feel even more intimate and magical. When they arrived at the cabin, Clara's eyes widened slightly. It was small but charming, with a wooden porch, soft lights glowing from the windows, and smoke curling lazily from a chimney. The smell of wood and a faint trace of lavender greeted her as Luke opened the door. "I thought we could make some tea, maybe sit by the fireplace," Luke said, stepping inside and gesturing for her to follow. "Nothing fancy, just quiet time together." Clara smiled, feeling her tension ease. The cabin was warm and inviting, a perfect contrast to the cool night outside. She placed her coat on a hook and followed him into the small living area, where a fire flickered softly in the hearth. The flames cast dancing shadows across the walls, making the room feel alive yet comforting. Luke knelt by the fireplace, carefully placing a small kettle on the stove, while Clara sat on a nearby chair, watching him. There was something in the way he moved, calm, attentive, thoughtful, that reminded her why she had always trusted him. Even after all these years, he carried a quiet strength that made her feel safe. Once the kettle began to whistle softly, Luke poured hot water into 2 mugs and handed one to Clara. She held it between her hands, feeling the warmth seep into her fingers, and took a small sip. The tea was simple but soothing, and the shared silence between them felt natural, filled with an unspoken understanding. They settled near the fireplace, sitting close enough to feel the warmth radiating from the flames and from each other. Clara rested her hands on her knees, occasionally glancing at Luke as he gazed into the fire. The silence was comfortable, not awkward, as if the hours they had spent apart had prepared them for this quiet companionship. "I can't believe how long it's been since we spent time like this," Clara said softly, breaking the silence. "It feels like coming home." Luke looked at her, his eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. "I feel the same way," he said quietly. "I've missed this. I've missed you. And now, being here, it feels like nothing else matters but this moment, just us." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of relief, happiness, and anticipation. She realized that staying near Luke tonight wasn't just about physical proximity. It was about trust, emotional connection, and the comfort of being with someone who truly understood her. They talked quietly, sharing stories from the years they had been apart. Luke told her about the challenges he had faced on the ranch, the lessons he had learned about patience, responsibility, and perseverance. Clara shared her own experiences, the small victories and struggles of her everyday life, and the dreams she still carried in her heart. Each story brought them closer, deepening their connection and reaffirming the bond that had never truly faded. After a while, the conversation naturally gave way to a comfortable silence. Clara leaned slightly against Luke, feeling the warmth of his presence beside her. He didn't move away or make her feel awkward. Instead, he rested his arm lightly on the back of the chair, creating a sense of closeness that was both gentle and reassuring. "You know," Luke said softly, breaking the silence, "I'm glad you stayed. I didn't want this night to end without us having some time together, just the 2 of us." Clara smiled, feeling her heart swell. "I'm glad too," she admitted. "Being here with you, it feels right. I've waited a long time for something like this, even if I didn't realize it at the time." They sat quietly, sipping their tea and watching the fire flicker, letting the world outside fade away. The cabin felt like a sanctuary, a place where past and present merged, and where the possibility of the future felt exciting and safe. Clara realized that staying near Luke tonight wasn't just about sharing a space. It was about sharing trust, comfort, and the beginning of a deeper connection. As the night grew darker, The fire's warmth and the gentle glow of the lanterns created a cocoon of intimacy around them. Clara felt a sense of anticipation, not from fear or pressure, but from the excitement of being with someone she cared about deeply, someone who valued her as much as she valued him. Luke reached over and brushed a strand of hair from her face, tucking it behind her ear with a tenderness that made her heart skip a beat. "Clara," he said quietly, "I promise tonight is just about being together. Nothing else matters. No rush, no expectations. Just us." Clara nodded, feeling a rush of gratitude and warmth. "I trust you," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. "And I'm happy to be here with you." They spent the rest of the evening in quiet companionship, talking, laughing softly, and enjoying the simplicity of the moment. The fire crackled, the night stretched endlessly around them, and the bond between them grew stronger with each passing minute. Clara realized that this night, this simple act of staying near someone she cared about, was more meaningful than anything she had imagined. As the fire began to die down and the first hints of dawn touched the horizon, Clara and Luke settled in for the night. They didn't need words to express the trust, comfort, and affection they felt for each other. The invitation to stay near him had opened the door to a new chapter, a chapter filled with warmth, care, and the promise of shared moments yet to come. And as Clara closed her eyes, resting with the knowledge that she was safe, understood, and valued, she felt a quiet excitement for the days ahead. The night had given them more than just comfort. It had given them a chance to begin something real, something lasting, together. The first light of morning crept gently over the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. Clara stirred beneath the cozy blankets in the small cabin, feeling the warmth of the fire from the night before still lingering in the room. She opened her eyes and noticed Luke sitting quietly by the window, his gaze focused on the rising sun. There was a peaceful calm in his expression, one that made her smile softly. She stretched and yawned, the comfort of the night and the presence of someone she trusted, leaving her feeling unusually light-hearted. For years, Clara had navigated life with caution, careful not to let herself get too close to people for fear of loss or disappointment. But last night had changed everything. Being near Luke, sharing stories, laughter, and quiet moments had reminded her that some connections were worth taking risks for. Luke turned when he heard her move, offering her a small, gentle smile. "Good morning," he said softly, his voice carrying the same warmth that had made her heart flutter the night before.
"Good morning," Clara replied, her voice soft but bright.
She felt a sense of ease and joy she hadn't realized she was missing. "Did you sleep well?"
"Better than I have in a long time," Luke said, glancing at her with a hint of tenderness.
"Being here, it just feels right." Clara nodded, her thoughts echoing his. Last night had been more than just an evening together. It had been a moment of rediscovery, a chance to reconnect not only with Luke, but also with herself. She realized that being with him didn't feel like stepping into the past. It felt like starting a new chapter, one where trust, understanding, and care would guide the way. They moved to the small kitchen area, where the morning sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow across the wooden counters. Luke set a kettle on the stove while Clara arranged the mugs. The quiet activity was comfortable, almost routine, yet there was an undercurrent of excitement in the air. It was a simple, ordinary morning, but it felt extraordinary because they were together. "Do you want breakfast?" Clara asked, smiling. Luke nodded.
"Yes, please. Something simple."
"I'm not picky." They prepared a modest breakfast of toast, eggs, and fruit, laughing quietly as they worked side by side. There was no rush, no tension, just a shared sense of contentment. Clara felt grateful for the simplicity of the moment, realizing that it was in these small, everyday interactions that real bonds were strengthened. After breakfast, they carried their plates to the porch, where the early sun illuminated the fields beyond. The town was slowly coming to life in the distance, but here, in the quiet morning, it felt as though the world belonged only to them. Birds chirped in the trees, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze added to the sense of calm. "I can't believe how quiet it is out here," Clara said, taking a deep breath. "It feels like we're the only ones awake in the whole town." Luke smiled, resting his arm on the back of the porch bench. "Sometimes you need mornings like this to remember what really matters. And right now, what matters is this. Us." Clara's heart warmed at his words. There was a sincerity in Luke's voice that made her feel safe and valued. "I feel the same way," she admitted. "Being here with you, it feels like coming home." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sunlight slowly climb higher in the sky. Clara felt a sense of clarity she hadn't had in years. The reunion with Luke had been unexpected, but it had also been exactly what she needed. A reminder that love, trust, and connection could be rediscovered, even after time and distance. "You know," Luke said after a while, his voice thoughtful, "I never stopped wondering what it would be like if we had stayed in touch all these years. I used to imagine mornings like this, peaceful, simple, and shared with someone who mattered." Clara smiled softly. "I used to imagine the same thing. I just didn't think it would actually happen. But here we are, and it's better than I imagined." Luke reached over and took her hand gently. "Clara, I know life can be unpredictable, but I want you to know I'm here now and I don't plan to go anywhere. I want to build something with you, step by step, day by day, day by day." Clara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from the depth of emotion she was experiencing. She had spent so long hoping for this kind of connection, and now it was real. "I want that too," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to see where this goes with you." They held hands, feeling the quiet strength of the moment. There was no rush, no pressure, just a shared understanding that this was the beginning of something meaningful. Clara realized that this trust, this willingness to be open and vulnerable, was rare, and that she had found it again in Luke. The morning passed in a comforting routine. They tidied up the cabin, shared stories over another cup of tea, and even took a short walk around the fields near the cabin. Every step they took together felt deliberate yet natural, a reflection of the bond they were building. Clara noticed how Luke listened attentively, how he valued her opinions and stories, and how effortlessly he made her feel seen and appreciated. At one point they found a small hill overlooking the town. Clara sat down on the grass and Luke joined her, resting his arm lightly around her shoulders. The view of the town bathed in morning light was beautiful, but Clara's attention was entirely on Luke. She felt a deep sense of contentment and anticipation, knowing that this was the start of a journey they would share together. "Life can be complicated," Luke said quietly, "but I think the important thing is to hold on to the moments that matter. Moments like this, moments with people who care about you, people who make you feel safe and happy." Clara leaned against him, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun. "I agree," she said softly, "and I think we found something rare here. Something worth holding on to." They spent the rest of the morning talking, laughing, and dreaming together. They shared their hopes for the future, small goals, adventures they wanted to take, and ways they wanted to support each other. Clara realized that the past, with its separation and distance, had only made their connection stronger. They were no longer the children who had played in the fields. They were two adults who had found their way back to each other, ready to face life together. As the sun climbed higher, they packed up their things and prepared to return to the town. But Clara knew that this day, this morning filled with trust, laughter, and quiet joy, would stay with her forever. It was the proof that second chances could happen, that connections could endure time and distance, and that love could be rediscovered when it was meant to be. Walking back into town, side by side, Clara felt a renewed sense of hope. She knew that the days ahead would be filled with ordinary moments, work, errands, and responsibilities, but she also knew that with Luke by her side, those moments would be brighter, richer, and more meaningful. The future was no longer uncertain. It was full of promise, and they would face it together. By the time they reached the town square, the streets were waking up with the sounds of everyday life. Shops opened, people walked to work, and the familiar rhythm of the town began. But Clara no longer felt like she was simply returning to routine. She felt like she was stepping into a life filled with purpose, joy, and shared dreams. Luke squeezed her hand gently as they walked, a silent promise passing between them. Clara looked up at him, smiling, and realized that the journey they had begun as children had finally found its true path. It wasn't about rushing or forcing things. It was about patience, trust, and the willingness to embrace a connection that had always been waiting. Later, as they sat together on a small bench near the town square, Clara reflected on the events of the past few days. She had reunited with an old friend, rediscovered trust, and allowed herself to feel emotions she had hidden for too long. And most importantly, she had realized that sometimes life's most meaningful moments came unexpectedly, quietly, and gently. Just like this one. Luke turned to her and smiled, his eyes reflecting the sunlight. "Clara," he said softly, "I know we have a lot ahead of us, but I want you to know I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and I want to make every day together count." Clara felt a rush of gratitude and joy.
I know, she replied, her voice soft but filled with certainty. And I'm ready.
Ready to see where this journey takes us together. They sat in companionable silence, watching the town come alive around them. Clara felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that this was only the beginning. The past had brought them here, and the future, full of shared moments, laughter, and love, was waiting for them. As the day unfolded, they continued side by side, embracing the ordinary and extraordinary moments alike. And in that quiet, heartwarming way that only true connection can bring, Clara knew that life had given her a gift far greater than she had imagined, the chance to love, trust, and grow alongside someone who had always been meant to be by her side.